So gang, as we look at mobility deployments, we want to see some different models that would be available to us depending on the hardware that you've actually purchased, right? So what can I do with what I've got or with what I might have? Well, remember that mobility is something that is certainly available and managed across multiple access points in a lightweight model centrally at the wireless LAN controller. So if you've chosen a centralized model where I've got an AirOS WLC 5508, 2504, or the new iOS XE 5760, right? So different operating system, same functionality. We can have mobility and certainly allow for roaming, seamless roaming between these access points that may be at different points inside of the overall network. So yes, we can create that environment. Again, these are standard access switches. These are not converged switches in this model, just standard switches working to distribution switches to the core and working its way down to wherever that LAN controller, wireless LAN controller might be. Now, with that said, we also could do, of course, the converged model, right? And that's what we've been focusing on, where we can have our integrated controllers. So there's our 3850 environment. We said that's good for a smaller to medium size campus or distribution because the mobility controller and agents are going to run right there on the 3850 or 3650, right there at the access layer, providing that functionality, allowing for the roaming to happen back and forth. Doesn't have to be distributed in a centralized way beyond those devices and get very high speed, especially within those localized switch groups. Now, we also, again, can use an external controller, and that's to scale out, right? That large campus with multiple controllers. Again, we've got the mobility aspect still running here because we are, once again, at the access layer running the 3850 or 3650 stacks. That's still the same. But now what are we doing? We've got our WLC 5760, 1 or 2 for best practices and high availability of those running. And so that becomes the controller element. Our CapWAP tunnels managed here. Again, that's what we've been focusing on as we've been looking at converged access and mobility. Can I get a hybrid between those two? Well, let me show you this. If I have some access points connecting to switches and that switch is, let's say, a Catalyst 2900, all right? Let's say it's some other type of access layer switch. Then what could happen in that case? Well, if I have a centralized device like 5760, then certainly we could establish a CapWAP centralized tunnel to that. Then if I have devices like this access point connected to a 3850 with its converged access, its mobility agent, it's got the WLC right in there, then again, this can function as a mobility agent to the mobility controller, again housed at the centralized 5760. So you can have the best of both worlds. In this context, the mobility controller is functioning as both the mobility controller and the mobility agent, but in this left-hand side, we see the mobility agent needs are already taken care of. Therefore, it's the centralized devices just providing the functionality of the controller. So you can have a hybrid and support both maybe your existing infrastructure, if that's already in place, and additional infrastructure purchased with new hardware designed with this in mind.